What does this stage of life feel like for you right now?
At the moment, alhamdulillah, it feels very calm. It's two levels, overwhelming and calm at the same time. If I go into further, I think 50s, inshallah, I pray, will be my very calm and acceptance stage at this part of my life. Yeah, that's what my intention is.
What do you mean by acceptance stage?
20s were, the years of young. You want to rule the world. You don't know who you are, but you think you know who you are. I won't say life was cruel to me. I'd say me finding myself was a very pivotal role in my life in my 30s, who I was, who I'd become, who I wanted to be. And I think finally in my 40s, I grasped it, she says. Before just turning 40s, I remember sitting down for dinner with my dad, and I said to my dad, "Oh, Dad, can you believe I'm going to be in my 40s?" And he said to me, "Samim, if you don't change now, you're never going to change. 40 is the age of change." And that came back to me after a couple of years where the revelation of Prophet ﷺ happened. And it happened in his 40s. And it was such a moment for me to actually grasp like what my father was saying, and from an Islamic spiritual context also. But my 40s were a very hard 40s where the menopause kicked in. So all that good intention, I'm going to be calm, I'm going to be a nice person, that just went out of the windows. In my 50s now, I want to make sure I know my patterns, my behavior, my changes, and actually do something about it in the most respectful, beautiful, and non-judgmental way. I think about my mother and my mother-in-law and my grandma and my aunties who went through transition in their lives, but nobody told them what they were going through. And that really, really upsets me. Actually upsets me to the core, where I sometimes have tears in my eyes, like, wow, you went through so much, but people thought it was actually you as a person, but actually it wasn't. Because with now science and research evolving around menopause, all these signs and symptoms, when I look back at my mothers and my aunties and the elders in my, in my circle, I'm thinking, gosh, that was that stage in your life. Can you imagine? You go through your periods for up until 50 years or whatever, and then all of a sudden it stops, but you have no knowledge or anything about it because nobody told you about it. So that lost generation, it actually really, really saddens me as a community. Why did we do that? So my 40 was brilliant, 40, 41. I thought I had my life mapped out again. The same cycle coming over and over again. And remember at 42, I was getting the hot flushes and I thought, what's this about? And then I remember my mood swings, they were really up and down. The anxiousness came, and I'm not an anxious person. So it was like a flip side of my personality. And I'm just like, who have I become, or who am I becoming? Like, there was all this chemical imbalance, which I was just like, no, it's probably one of them one-off days. The one-off days started coming to 2 off days, 3, and there was a regular pattern. And I remember going to the doctors. And in my head, I didn't think of the menopause or perimenopause or whatever you want to call it. I went and I'm just like, oh, I feel like this. And she goes, oh, let me check your blood pressure. She misdiagnosed me with blood pressure because at that time the anxious levels were there. She goes, you need to go on blood pressure tablets. I went, what for? I said, how am I going on blood pressure? I said, don't you want, and there was a light bulb moment. I said, oh, don't you want to give me a blood test for my hormones? And she said to me, you're far too young to be going through menopause or perimenopause. So I just thought, oh, okay, she's a doctor. What do I know? And lo and behold, I saw a documentary on the TV and all these symptoms, and I could really resonate and relate. And what happened was, for 3-4 years, I suffered all these symptoms because I felt I couldn't put my finger on it. I thought I was going mad. I thought I was just turning into a right cow. Yeah, I think at one point my family thought I was unbearable. There was all these like mood swings and stuff, and I couldn't put my finger on. I remember walking out of a job, like I'm not coming back. I walked out and I walked home. It was raining, it was cold, and I came home and I was like, I've left my job. Like, why? I couldn't put the two things together. Then I remember after a couple of years, when I saw this document, I went back to the doctors. And alhamdulillah, I had a very young doctor. She knew about the perimenopause. She knew about everything. She goes, right, we're going to have a chat. We're going to go through some blood tests. And we're going to actually see where you're at in your journey. You may be perimenopause, menopause, we don't know yet. But all these things I was telling her, she goes, okay, doesn't matter how old you are, you can start. And I felt a sigh of relief, actually, because it was like, okay, this is not me. Well, partly was me, but there is something, you know, there's the method behind the madness kind of thing. I was like, okay. And then I remember having the conversation. She then took me off the blood pressure tablets. And she goes, this is what we're going to do. Then she recommended, she gave me a few options, HRT, whatever. And I was a bit scared of the HRT and all the stories, whatever. And I thought, you know what? I've suffered in silence, not silence, but I've suffered for 5 years. So now I'm at 47, from 42 to 47. 5 years of being that martyr. I'll never take HRT because you know what? The side effects, and yeah, what do you mean we can't cope with it? Honestly, and I'm not kind of saying everybody should, you know, medically get advice. I went on the HRT patches. And now at 50, almost 51, it was the best thing I ever did. I kicked myself, why did I do it earlier? Because for that 5 years, it was not a nice time of my life, personally, in the sense myself, not everything around me. Everything around me was fine. Everybody was ticking along. I was trying to be this, you know, this career woman, this mother, this daughter-in-law, this wife. It was too much. But I remember when I started taking the HRT, I started really finding myself back. And then I started doing some family research. I started talking to my mom. I'm like, when did you go through menopause? And she goes, at 42. And it makes perfect sense that I started at 42. You know, I said, when did your, obviously, period stop? She goes, in my 50s.
Why do you think society stays quiet about the menopause and midlife changes?
Why does society stay quiet? I don't know. Is it because we're Muslims, the haya? But we're not saying we're screaming and shouting about it. We're not saying, and even if we were, what's the problem? When people have cancer, when people have, I don't know, whatever illness, everybody rallies round. So why is menopause any different? Is it because culturally we feel it's shameful because it's linked to periods? Why are we shying away from it? I think for us and the younger generation, we need to be more active in speaking about it. The likes of Taahirah, the likes of other women advocacy, we need to speak about it from a cultural perspective and an Islamic perspective. Once we speak from it from an Islamically and a spiritual perspective, I think there will be no stigma anymore. I remember meeting a friend, I'm going to go back in my 40s, and I'm like, oh, I'm going through the menopause. And she'd already been through the menopause. She's a couple of years older than me. And she goes, how does it feel? And I said, I feel so sad. She goes, why? I was like, I've had this period all my life. Before I used to mourn about my periods, right? Like, oh, every month, you know, all that talk. But I now feel like a part of me is disappearing. She goes to me, it's really upset you. I said, yeah, the part of me is really disappearing. She goes, why don't you turn it around a bit? I said, how? She said, why don't you look at it as part of you is rising? Like you're becoming something. And you're actually not losing something. You're actually becoming, and you set your stance on that. And them words stay for me now forever. Like, okay, you're not losing, you're gaining. Alhamdulillah, from that conversation, I have gained a lot more spiritually, mentally, emotionally, and physically. And I think we've got to remember that it's a beautiful thing at the same time. It's Allah, the Rahmah of the womb, He's given it to us. He'll also want us to end it one day. Nothing lasts forever, but kind of embrace it. Absolutely embrace it.
How has your spirituality changed with age? Do you feel more calm, certain, closer to Allah?
Absolutely, 100% closer to Allah. The calm, it depends what day I'm on. You know, if anybody says Samim's calm, they'll be like, yeah, okay. Calm, yeah, in my prayers, in my spiritual practices, I do think it's a lot more meaningful. It's not rushed. It's about finding yourself with Allah. So I do think in that aspect, it is calm. The only sad thing is when I see other people suffering, I see other women and girls suffering in silence. I see the lack of empathy. I see the lack of products in some of the countries, even in the UK, that people can't access. That really makes me upset. But then that also makes me strive to do something about it. When I go into food banks, domestic violence centres, to do the campaign, which you know, about period poverty, and I see these ladies and girls suffering for the lack of support, it pains me. So my legacy would be try to do something about it. Action speaks louder than words, and try to help, not just within your circle, but within the wider community.
What has changed about how you see yourself, your identity, your confidence, your purpose?
My identity, this is who I am. Love me or hate me, I'm not really bothered, in the nicest possible way. And I want to see myself as somebody who can do something for the sake of Allah, and not for the sake of the dunya, but for the sake of Allah and the people I love around me. That's who I feel my identity in my 50s should be. And for me, family is the greatest gift. Family is a great thing. And yeah, you have your ups and downs with everybody, but if charity begins at home, let us be where we need to be and then expand. Once that circle is secure, then you can do whatever you want. And I think for my 50s, that is the legacy I want to leave behind for my daughter, for my nieces, for anybody who sees me. To actually, when you do something, really home in on why you're doing it, what are you doing for? But it should be the first, you're doing it for the sake of Allah. May Allah kind of keep that steadfastness with you and in whatever you're achieving, inshallah.
How do you think about preserving your health as an amana? And what does that look like practically now?
Going back, our mother's generation, our grandmothers, they missed out. They thought 40s and 50s, that's it, life ends. For me, 40s and 50s, life begins in a new chapter of your life. I think physically looking after yourself is such an amana. Whether you're 40, 50, 60, 20, 30, whatever, I think looking after yourself. For me, I want to go in my old age. A lot of people say I am already old. I want to go in with strength. That means I look after myself. I eat well. Yeah, I like my junk. And I love walking in nature. For me, going into nature and grounding myself, even for that half an hour, it gives you so much clarity and benefit. And it actually relieves the tensions of the day or whatever you've got planned. So for me, having a routine is so important. I know first thing in the morning, once I've done my prayers and whatever, if I've not gone for my walk or if I've not done any form of exercise, I know my mind over matter won't be as strong when I do these other things. Yes, some days are not like, I can't be bothered, but most days, if it's making me feel better, then why am I not doing it?
What advice would you give to your daughters or nieces about life ahead of them and how to navigate it?
I look at my daughter now, alhamdulillah, she's 25. And she's this strong, resilient, beautiful girl. And I would say that because she's my daughter. MashaAllah, Allah Mabarak, may Allah preserve. And even my nieces. And I think if that was my young self, I would like to be like that. But alhamdulillah, that's come with her own journey. That's come with what she's seen from her grandma, from both sides, from her aunties, from the people, and from her mother. And I always say, stand up for yourself, but in the most nicest and beautiful way. You don't have to be confrontational. But sometimes just speak up what you actually feel. And I think if we start breaking them generation traumas with ourselves first, our daughters' journeys or our nieces' journeys will be much more better. So from that's the advice I would give.
How does it feel to talk about aging and change?
I love it. I'm fine. I have got no qualms. Sometimes I actually forget I'm in my 50s. Sometimes when I meet ladies of my age, this is really bad. Or I'll say, hello, auntie, and then I forget. I'm like, they're your age. Why are you calling them auntie? Aging is the process. Allah's never told us we're going to be young. You know, do it with grace. I think I'm much better than I was in my 20s or my 30s. But you can only say that if you've experienced that, and I have. So I can say quite gladly, I'm in a better state I was than I was in any other years of my life. Alhamdulillah.
What would you tell women approaching 40 who feel anxious or unprepared?
Do your research, but don't go down the rabbit hole. Don't go down that rabbit hole because Google or whatever goes down. But you know what? Speak to people like your mothers, your aunties, people who have been through the experience. Everybody's experience is different. However, there will be similarities. So you know what? Speak to people. Speak to groups. There's so many groups now that you can access. There's, I don't know, the Menopause Society or whatever. Just start researching and actually be prepared and be like, okay, if you are having a bad day and there's patterns or anxiousness and stuff like that, actually, it's not because you're a bad person. It's not because you've done something wrong. It's because there's a hormonal imbalance, chemical imbalance, and you can ask help. And if you're having a mood, just say to people, I'm having a bad day. I don't feel well. Or you know what, today is a very good day, and today I'm going to go and smash it. And tomorrow may not be as a good day, but take one day as it comes and embrace it, but ask for help.
How can men, brothers, fathers, support women that are going through this stage in their life?
Cook, clean, do the housework. Just be there to even hold your daughters, your wife, whatever. Or just say, I'm here. Are you okay? Do you actually want a cup of tea? Should I give you a hot water bottle? You know? Are you not having a good day? Okay, that's fine. Not just like, oh, what's up with you today? You know, then just be there and just understand.
If there was one piece of advice you could give for anybody listening now, what would it be?
Don't suffer in silence. Reach out. Very simple. And you know what? You're not alone. You're absolutely not alone. And it's going to be fine, inshallah.
ووصينا الإنسان بوالديه إحسانا حملته أمه كرها ووضعته كرها وحمله وفصاله 30 شهرا حتى إذا بلغ أشده وبلغ 40 سنة قال رب أوزعني أن أشكر نعمتك التي أنعمت علي وعلى والدي وأن أعمل صالحا ترضاه وأصلح لي في ذريتي إني تبت إليك وإني من المسلمين